Sometimes it takes just one moment, one sentence, one thought to change the entire course of your life. And that moment is now. You may not feel ready. You may think you need to have it all figured out. But let me tell you something no one ever told me when I was broken, lost, and desperately searching for a reason to breathe again. You don't need to be cool to begin. You just need to be willing. Today, I want to plant 6 seeds in your heart. Simple truths that, if nurtured, will grow into a life you never dreamed possible. These truths may hurt at first. They may demand courage, but I promise you, they will change your life forever. We often think scars are something to hide, flaws that need to be covered, forgotten, erased. But what if I told you that your scars are sacred? That they are the most honest parts of you? You see, a scar means you were wounded, but it also means you healed. It means you fell, but you stood back up. It means something tried to break you, and it failed. Every scar has a story. Maybe yours came from a broken heart, a betrayal, a silent struggle that no one else saw. Maybe your scar isn't on your skin, but buried deep within, where words don't go, where memories linger like shadows. You've carried it like a burden, hoping no one notices. But today, I want you to notice it. I want you to honor it. That scar is not ugly. It's not shameful. It is the mark of your survival. There was a time you cried and no one listened. A time you wanted to give up, but you didn't. You kept breathing. You kept going. And that quiet endurance, that strength in silence, that is what the world often overlooks. But that is where your power lives. Not in the moments you smiled for the world, but in the nights you held yourself together while falling apart. So many of us are taught to be perfect, to be polished, clean, whole. But perfection is a lie, and wholeness does not mean unbroken. Wholeness means embracing the pieces, holding them close, loving the parts of you that have been through the fire and came out glowing, not because they were untouched, but because they refused to burn out. I have met people whose eyes carry entire wars behind them. People who walk with kindness, even when life has been cruel. People who laugh with others while grieving silently inside. And I've learned these are the strongest souls, not because they're fearless, but because they feel deeply and still show up, because they're scarred and still soft. That is rare, that is beautiful. You don't need to explain your scars to anyone. You don't need to justify the pain you've lived through. If they knew the storms you've walked through to stand here today, they'd call you a miracle. But you already are. You are a living, breathing testimony to what it means to keep going, even when every reason told you to stop. So stop hiding. Don't tuck your pain away in quiet corners. Don't minimize your story to make others comfortable. Let your scars speak. Let them show. Let them remind you every day you survived. And that survival is not just something to be proud of. It is something to wear like armor, like art, like truth. We all begin with a vision. A picture in our minds of how life is supposed to look. Where we'll be, who we'll become, what happiness will feel like. We make plans. We draw timelines. We write stories in our heads and convince ourselves that anything outside those lines is failure. But life, in its quiet wisdom, doesn't always follow our script. And sometimes the most painful truth to face is this: the life you imagined is not the one meant for you. There is a heartbreak in letting go of a dream you nurtured for years. It feels like grieving someone who never existed. You think, but I worked so hard for this. I gave everything to make this happen. And still the door closes, the path vanishes. The person walks away, and you're left staring at the pieces of a plan that made you feel safe once, but now only holds you hostage. That's when you learn. Not all endings are failures. Some are redirections. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you've wasted time or that you weren't good enough. It simply means life is guiding you to a new chapter. And that chapter may not make sense yet. It may feel empty at first, even unfair. But slowly, if you allow it, space begins to open. In that space, something unexpected starts to grow. Possibility, not of what you planned, but of what you never even considered. The truth is, you were never meant to live a life that fits neatly into boxes and bullet points. You are too expansive, too evolving for that. Sometimes the detour is the destination. Sometimes the thing you thought was a loss is actually grace in disguise, removing what you've outgrown, even if you don't see it yet. The people who left, the opportunities that faded, the dreams that crumbled, they may have made room for something far more aligned with who you are becoming. But to receive that new life, you must first unclench your fists. Let go of the version of you that was built around someone else's expectations. Release the pressure to make everything make sense. Trust that even in the unknown, you are being held by something greater than your plans, whether you call it faith, life, or simply growth. Trust that uncertainty is not the enemy. It's the soil where transformation begins. It's okay to mourn the life you thought you'd have. It's okay to feel lost for a while, but don't get stuck in what should have been. The world is still full of could-bes. The path that shattered beneath your feet might have led to a cage, and the new one, though unfamiliar and winding, might lead to freedom. But you'll never know unless you take the first step away from what is no longer meant for you. There is nothing weak about changing direction. There is nothing shameful about saying, "This isn't for me anymore." In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. Because it means you are choosing truth over comfort, purpose over pride, growth over control. You're not lost, you're unfolding. And sometimes that unfolding begins the moment you let go of the life you planned. There comes a time in every soul's journey when you start believing that your presence is too heavy, that your emotions are too loud, your needs too inconvenient. Somewhere along the way, someone made you feel like your pain was a problem to fix, or worse, a nuisance to avoid. And ever since you've been shrinking, dimming your light, whispering your truth, convincing yourself that it's easier to be silent than to risk being seen as it too much. But let me tell you this, as clearly as I can, you are not a burden. Your voice matters. Your feelings are valid. The world may not have always made space for your softness, your sensitivity, your storm, but that does not mean it doesn't belong. It simply means the world didn't know what to do with a light as rare as yours. You weren't made to be small. You weren't designed to hide your heart just to make others comfortable. The way you feel deeply, love fiercely, and care without limits, that is your strength, not your shame. The world is desperate for people like you. People who feel, people who stay gentle, even after being bruised. People who show up with compassion even when they've been dismissed. If you've ever been told you're emotional, I want you to remember, emotion is energy in motion. It's life speaking through you. It means you're alive, connected, aware. It means you notice the little things others miss. You absorb the unspoken. You read the silence. That's not a weakness. That's a gift. And it's okay if not everyone understands it. You don't need to become colder just to fit into a world that often forgets how to feel. We live in a time that rewards perfection and punishes vulnerability. So it's no wonder you feel like hiding when you're hurting. But there is a sacred kind of power in showing up messy, in letting others witness your truth. You give others permission to be real too. You remind them that healing is not linear, in being human is not something to be ashamed of. You are not hard to love. You've just been loved by people who didn't know how to hold someone as tender and true as you. Stop apologizing for your light. Stop explaining why you feel so deeply. That depth is your brilliance. That empathy is your superpower. You do not need to toughen up to be enough. Zaki. You are already enough as you are, where you are in all your glorious imperfection. So take up space. Speak your truth even if your voice trembles. Cry when you need to. Laugh too loudly. Dance awkwardly. Love boldly. Because you, just as you are, bring something into this world that no one else can. not despite your sensitivity, but because of it. You are not a burden, you are a light, and this world is brighter because you're in it. There is a silence that follows a breaking when something you trusted shatters in your hands, when someone you loved walks away, or when the dream you held so close falls apart without warning. That silence can feel unbearable. In it, you ask questions that echo inside your soul. Why me? Why now? Will I ever be okay again? And the hardest part is not knowing the answers. It's waking up in the ruins of what once was and wondering how to begin again. But if you listen closely to that silence, you'll find something unexpected growing there. Not all at once, not loudly, but slowly, softly. Like the first green leaf after a fire, like a cracked wall that lets sunlight in. There's beauty hiding in the brokenness, not because the pain is beautiful, but because what you become through it is. The breaking reveals the layers you never knew existed within you. It opens you to truths you never would have seen without it. So many of us live afraid of falling apart as if breaking is the end. But sometimes it's the beginning. The seed must split to grow. The night must come before the dawn, and you too must allow yourself to fall, not to fail, but to shed. To shed who you no longer are. To release what was never meant to stay. There is sacred strength in surrendering to the breaking instead of resisting it. Some of the most breathtaking things in life carry fractures within them. The Japanese art of kintsugi teaches us that broken pottery can be repaired with gold, and the cracks become the most treasured part of the piece, not something to hide, but something to highlight. Imagine if we looked at ourselves that way. Imagine if we saw our wounds not as disqualifications, but as the places where healing made us extraordinary. The world often tells you to move on, stay strong, get over it. But healing is not a performance. It is not linear, and it is never rushed. There is no shame in taking your time. There is no weakness in aching. When you sit with your pain instead of running from it, you learn to speak the language of your soul. You learn what matters, what remains, and what no longer fits in the new life you are slowly building. Sometimes the most beautiful parts of you are the ones that were born in darkness. Your resilience, your empathy, your capacity to love deeper because you've known loss, your courage to keep going, even when you didn't know where the path would lead. These are the jewels forged in your suffering, unseen by the world, but priceless within you. So don't rush to erase the broken parts. Don't silence your sadness or cover your cracks. They are not weaknesses. They are evidence of life lived deeply, of a soul brave enough to feel, of a heart strong enough to heal. There is beauty in the broken, not because breaking is beautiful, but because you are even in pieces, even in pain, even in the process. From a young age, the world begins to teach us that our worth must be earned. We learn to associate value with performance. How well we do in school, how many friends we have, how much we achieve, how beautiful we appear. We learn to seek approval in applause, in attention, in acceptance. And slowly, quietly, we begin to believe the lie. I am only enough when others say I am. But this is not the truth of who you are. Not even close. Your worth is not a reward. It is a birthright. It was woven into your being the moment you took your first breath. Before you did anything, before you proved anything, before anyone labeled you, you were already complete. Already worthy. Life may have taught you to question that, but life cannot unmake what you were born with. The world may not always reflect your worth back to you, but that does not mean it disappeared. You are not your productivity. You are not your income. You are not your likes, your followers, your grades, your job title, or your relationship status. Strip all of that away, and what remains is you, and you are enough, even when you feel lost, even when you're struggling to believe in yourself. Your worth is not dependent on belief. It exists whether you see it or not. Think about all the times you questioned your value because someone failed to see it. All the times you shrank yourself to fit into a space that was never meant for your full expression. All the times you stayed silent, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were convinced your voice didn't matter. These are not reflections of your worth. They are reflections of a world that forgets how sacred each soul truly is. Sometimes the people around you are too wounded to recognize your light. Sometimes they are too distracted, too closed, too hardened by their own pain to honor yours. But your worth is not measured by how others treat you. Their inability to love you has nothing to do with how lovable you are. It took me a long time to realize that being overlooked does not make you less valuable. It only reveals who is truly capable of seeing. You were never meant to be everyone's favorite. You were never meant to be understood by all. But you were meant to be deeply, fiercely loved for exactly who you are. And that kind of love begins with you, with the way you speak to yourself when no one's listening, with the way you honor your feelings instead of judging them. Now, with the way you refuse to abandon yourself even when the world does. So the next time you feel like you're not enough, pause, breathe, remind yourself, my worth was never up for debate. It doesn't change with people's opinions. It doesn't fluctuate with my mistakes. It doesn't vanish in my weakest moments. It is constant. It is real. And it lives within me quietly but powerfully, asking only to be remembered. Hope is not a loud voice. It does not shout above the noise of despair or demand to be seen when everything feels like it's falling apart. Hope is often a whisper, a fragile flicker in the dark. And yet it is that whisper that has the power to save you. It is that flicker that refuses to die, even when the night feels endless. Choosing hope is not pretending that everything is okay. It's believing that one day, somehow, it can be. There are moments in life when you will feel buried. Moments when the weight of grief, failure, or heartbreak feels like too much to carry. And in those moments, hope will feel almost cruel. Because how do you hope when you've been disappointed over and over again? How do you look forward when all you've known is loss? The answer is gently, softly. You choose hope not because life is perfect, but because you refuse to let the pain define the end of your story. Hope doesn't promise that the storm will pass quickly. It doesn't guarantee that the wound will heal without scars. What it does offer is the quiet courage to get through today. It says, you don't have to know what tomorrow holds. Just keep going. Hope is the hand you extend to yourself when you feel like giving up. It is the light you carry even when no one else sees it. It is the soul's way of saying, I'm not done yet. We often think of strength as hard, unshakable, impenetrable, but real strength is soft. Real strength is the tear you cry in the dark and the breath you take afterward. It is the decision to keep waking up when your heart is tired. It is the smile you offer someone else even when your own world is heavy. Hope is not naive. It is resilient. It grows in the cracks of your sorrow. It rises when everything else has fallen. You may not see the path ahead right now. You may feel like you are walking blind through a season that has no end. But hope doesn't need to see far. It only needs to see one step in front of you. And if all you can do today is take that one small step, then you are already choosing hope. You are already winning the fight that no one else may even know you're in. Let no one tell you that you are weak for struggling. Let no one convince you that hope is foolish. It takes a different kind of bravery to hope after heartbreak, to believe after betrayal, to trust after trauma. That kind of bravery does not scream. It whispers, try again. And even if your voice trembles when you say it, even if your hands shake as you reach forward, that still counts. That still matters. So choose hope, not because life is easy, but because your soul is strong. Choose it because even in your breaking, something inside you still believes in healing. Even in your darkness, something inside you still believes in dawn. And maybe, just maybe, that belief is the most powerful thing of all. You see, we spend so much of our lives waiting for the perfect moments, the perfect version of ourselves, the perfect plan to unfold. But life doesn't wait. It keeps moving, and if we're not careful, we miss the quiet, extraordinary invitation it offers every single day to begin again. This isn't just about insta-release, it's about transformation. Real, soul-deep change. The kind that doesn't happen when everything is going right, but when everything feels like it's falling apart. And you choose to rise anyway. You choose to let go of the life you thought you needed. You choose to see yourself not as a burden, but as a light. You begin to see the beauty even in what's been broken. You start remembering that your worth was never in question. And most of all, you dare to hope, even when it hurts. This is not a story of perfection. This is a story of courage, a story of standing tall with trembling legs. A story of whispering, I'm still here, when life tried to silence you. This moment of awareness, this quiet decision to honor your journey, this new way of seeing yourself, this is what will change your life forever. Because once you understand that your pain has a purpose, that your voice holds power, and that your story has meaning, you will never again live small. You will speak with a fire that only comes from walking through the flames. You will love more deeply, give more freely, and live more fully. Not because life has been easy, but because you've been brave enough to live it anyway. So step forward, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who is finally ready to trust the process, the journey, the becoming. Let today be the day you stop waiting for life to change and realize it already is. And so are you.